3,000 warships stretched across the void like a swarm of metallic locusts, each one carrying enough firepower to reduce a continent to glass. The Dravani conquest fleet had arrived at the edge of an unremarkable solar system, and Fleet Admiral Vorax allowed himself a rare smile as he studied the distant blue planet on his observation screen. Earth, the name meant nothing to him. Just another world to add to the Dominion's collection. Report, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 2 centuries of victories. Sub-Commander Rella stepped forward, her scaled fingers dancing across the tactical display. She was young for her rank, barely 60 cycles old, but her mind was sharp enough to earn her place aboard the flagship. Long-range sensors confirm initial intelligence. Admiral, the planet supports approximately 8 billion inhabitants, carbon-based life forms. Average height between 5 and 6 feet, no natural armor, no claws, no venom glands, their technology primitive at best. Rella pulled up images of human spacecraft, clunky metal containers that looked like toys compared to Dravani vessels. They have achieved basic spaceflight but cannot travel beyond their own moon. Their orbital presence consists of communication satellites and one small station that appears to be for scientific research. No weapons platforms, no defense grid, no energy shields of any kind. High Priest Gallos moved closer, his ceremonial robes rustling against the cold deck. The old priest had blessed this fleet before departure, invoking the sacred doctrine that had guided Dravani expansion for millennia. The strong exist to conquer, he intoned, the weak exist to serve. This is the natural order of all things. Vorax nodded. He had heard these words 1,000 times, and they had proven true on 200 worlds. Species with greater technology had fallen. Species with superior numbers had fallen. What chance did these soft, fragile humans have? Their broadcasts are fascinating, Rella continued, a note of confusion in her voice. They transmit constantly, entertainment programs, news reports, political arguments. They appear to be divided into hundreds of separate nations that frequently conflict with each other. Their primary concerns seem to be economic competition and cultural disputes. A fractured species, Vorax observed. They will not even be able to coordinate a response. He turned to face his bridge crew, all of them veterans of countless campaigns. Signal the fleet, standard conquest formation. We approach at half speed. I want them to see us coming. Let them feel terror before they feel death. The order rippled through 3,000 ships, engines flared to life, and the armada began its slow advance toward the blue marble hanging in the darkness. Vorax retired to his quarters to enjoy a victory meal. There was no need for him to remain on the bridge. This conquest would be routine, perhaps even boring. He had faced enemies with plasma cannons and antimatter bombs, with psychic warriors and biological weapons. Humans had none of these things. They had only their fragile bodies and their primitive machines. Back on the bridge, Rella remained at her station. Something bothered her, though she could not identify what. She ran additional sensor sweeps, examining Earth's orbital space more carefully. The satellites were simple enough. Communication relays, weather monitors, navigation systems, nothing threatening. But as she watched, she noticed something strange. One by one, the satellites were adjusting their orientation. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, they were all turning to face the approaching fleet, as if they were watching. Rella shook her head. Paranoid thoughts. These were primitive observation devices, nothing more. Perhaps they were automated systems responding to the unusual readings of 3,000 ships. Perhaps the humans were simply curious about their coming doom. She filed a brief note in her report and returned to her standard duties. 4 hours to weapons range. 4 hours until Earth learned what happened to species that stood against the Dravani Dominion. Rella had seen it before. The panic, the desperate last-minute attempts at negotiation, the inevitable surrender or destruction. Humans would be no different. They could not be different. And yet, as she stared at the blue planet growing slowly larger on her screen, Rella could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans had detected them. Their adjusted satellites proved that much. But there was no panic in their broadcasts, no emergency transmissions, no fleets launching in desperate defense. Earth was silent, almost as if it was waiting. Rella dismissed the thought. What could a primitive world possibly do against 3,000 warships? The answer was obvious. Nothing. They could do nothing. She would learn how wrong she was in exactly 4 hours. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, inside a bunker that officially did not exist, Director Priya Okonkwo watched the alien fleet approach on a wall of holographic displays. She was 63 years old, a grandmother of 3, and the most powerful military commander in human history. Though the world would never know her name, time to weapons range, she asked calmly. General Dmitry Volkov checked his console. The Russian was built like a bear, with hands that could crush stone, but his voice was soft as silk. 2 hours, Director. They have reduced speed, likely psychological tactics. They want the public to see them coming. The public sees exactly what we want them to see. Okonkwo turned to the communication officer. Are they preparing to broadcast? Yes, ma'am. Standard conquest protocol based on intercepted Dravani communications. They will demand surrender within the hour. Okonkwo nodded. Everything was proceeding as expected. 18 years, that was how long humanity had been preparing for this moment. It began when a routine deep space telescope detected an anomaly, a Dravani scout probe entering the solar system. Most people would have dismissed it as a glitch. Dr. Amara Singh did not. Singh had been a young physicist then, brilliant and obsessive. She tracked the probe, studied its transmissions, and eventually cracked its communication protocols. What she found changed everything. The Dravani Dominion had conquered 200 worlds. They were methodical, patient, and utterly ruthless. Earth was on their list. The world's governments faced a choice: announce the threat and risk global panic, or prepare in secret. They chose secrecy. For 18 years, humanity's greatest minds worked in hidden facilities beneath mountains, inside hollowed asteroids, on the dark side of the moon. They reverse-engineered the probe's technology and then improved upon it. They built ships that could appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. They created weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. And through it all, they maintained the illusion. Reality shows and political scandals dominated the airwaves. Nations argued over borders and trade deals. Earth looked exactly like what the Dravani expected: a primitive, divided, helpless world. The deception was humanity's greatest weapon. Admiral Vorex's face appeared on the main screen. His ultimatum was standard conquest fare: surrender and serve, or resist and die. He gave Earth 1 hour to respond. Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. She dictated her reply: we decline your offer. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from our solar system. This is your only warning. The message was transmitted. On the Dravani flagship, Vorex received the human response and laughed. His officers laughed with him. The arrogance of these primitive creatures was almost admirable. Did they truly believe their pathetic world could threaten 3,000 warships? Only Subcommander Rella did not laugh. Something about the human message troubled her. There was no fear in it, no desperation. It read like a statement of fact, not a bluff. She ran another sensor sweep of Earth's orbital space. Nothing, empty vacuum, a few satellites, the same readings as before. Admiral, she said carefully, perhaps we should. Should what? Vorex cut her off. Retreat from a species that cannot even leave their own planet. The Dominion would become a laughingstock. No, Sub-Commander, these humans will learn their place. He ordered the fleet to increase speed, maximum approach velocity. They would make an example of this defiant little world. Rella watched the countdown timer. 30 seconds until the human deadline expired. 20 seconds. 10. She gripped her console. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Vorex opened his mouth to deliver a mocking comment about human threats. Then Rella's sensor board erupted. Contacts appeared across every vector, thousands of them, emerging from locations that had registered as empty moments before, behind the moon, inside asteroid fields, from points in space that should have been void. The ships were sleek and angular, their hulls shimmering with unknown energy fields. They were not primitive, they were not harmless, they were already in attack formation, and they were already firing. Rella had exactly half a second to understand that everything they knew about humans was wrong. Then the first volley struck, and the universe turned to fire. The first wave of projectiles crossed the void in 0.3 of a second. Rella watched 847 Dravani warships vanish from her tactical display in the time it took her to blink. They did not explode gradually or break apart, they simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding clouds of superheated debris. The human weapons were unlike anything in Dravani records. Dr. Amara Singh had called them cascade cannons. Projectiles accelerated to 97% of light speed, carrying enough kinetic energy to crack a small moon. By the time Dravani sensors detected the incoming fire, the rounds had already struck their targets. Admiral Vorik stumbled as his flagship shuddered from impacts, debris from nearby vessels slammed into the eternal silence like a meteor shower, warning alarms screamed from every console. Shields, he roared, all ships, raise shields, they already have shields, Admiral. Rella's voice was hollow, the humans are firing through them. It was impossible, no known weapon could penetrate Dravani defensive barriers without multiple sustained volleys, but the human projectiles did not care about what was possible. They punched through shields like paper, through armor like cloth, through reactor cores like empty air. The Dravani fleet broke formation, captains screamed contradictory orders over communication channels, some ships tried to flee, others attempted to return fire, none of them succeeded. The human fleet numbered 4,200 vessels, and they moved with terrifying coordination. Their Prometheus drives allowed instantaneous repositioning, ships blinked from one location to another without crossing the space between. Dravani targeting systems could not track them. By the time a weapon locked on, the human ship had already relocated. 15 seconds after the first volley, the humans fired again. This time, they used the targeting data from their initial attack. Every shot found its mark. 1,100 more Dravani vessels died in a cascade of nuclear fire. The fleet was down to roughly 1,000 operational ships, and those survivors were scattered and confused. Vorik watched his empire's proudest armada disintegrate around him. 2,000 years of Dravani conquest, and he had never seen anything like this. He had fought enemies with superior numbers. He had fought enemies with advanced technology. He had never fought an enemy that was both, and that had been hiding its true strength all along. Admiral, Rella's voice cut through the chaos. I am detecting a pattern in their targeting. What pattern? They are not attacking randomly. First they destroyed our troop transports, then our supply vessels, then our communication relays. She pulled up a tactical analysis. They are isolating our warships from each other, cutting off command structures. This is not a battle, this is a systematic dismantling. Vorik felt cold understanding settle in his stomach. The humans had studied Dravani tactics. They knew exactly how the Dominion's military operated, and they had built their entire strategy around exploiting its weaknesses. Earth had not been waiting in fear, Earth had been waiting in ambush. 45 seconds had passed since the battle began. The Dravani fleet had been reduced from 3,000 ships to fewer than 900. Human losses, 0. A communication request appeared on Vorik's console. He accepted it. Director Priya Okonkwo's face filled the screen. She was an elderly human female, small and frail-looking by Dravani standards, but her eyes held no fear, no uncertainty, only calm, patient authority. Admiral Vorik, she said, you have lost over 2,000 ships in less than 1 minute. Your remaining vessels are surrounded. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your engines cannot outrun our drives. This engagement is over. Vorik said nothing. What was there to say? I offer you one opportunity to surrender, Okonkwo continued. Your crews will be treated humanely, your wounded will receive medical care, you will be held as prisoners of war under the laws of our Geneva Convention, rules we created to protect the dignity of defeated enemies. This is not a trick, it is simply how we do things. She paused. You have 30 seconds to decide. I will not offer again. The communication ended. Vorik looked at Rella. He looked at Gallos. He looked at the burning remnants of his fleet on the tactical display. 30 seconds. Admiral Vorik surrendered. There was no honor in pointless death. His remaining 900 ships powered down their weapons and awaited human boarding parties. The battle, if it could even be called that, had lasted 58 seconds. 58 seconds to destroy 2,000 years of Dravani military supremacy. Human marines boarded the eternal silence within minutes. They moved through the corridors with efficient precision, securing each section without unnecessary violence. Vorik had expected brutality. The Dravani showed no mercy to defeated enemies, and he assumed humans would be the same. Instead, the Marines provided medical attention to wounded crew members. They distributed water and ration packs to prisoners. One human soldier noticed a young Dravani officer trembling with shock and draped a thermal blanket over her shoulders. Vorik did not understand. Director Okonkwo arrived aboard a shuttle 3 hours later. She walked through the flagship without guards, without weapons, without any apparent concern for her safety. When she entered the command center where Vorik waited under Marine supervision, she did not gloat, she did not threaten, She offered him a chair. You must have questions, she said, settling into a seat across from him. I will answer what I can. Vorik studied her face. She was smaller than he had expected, her brown skin wrinkled with age, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence. In the Dominion, elderly females held no power, they were considered past their usefulness, yet this woman commanded the most devastating military force he had ever encountered. How, he finally asked, your broadcasts showed a primitive world, divided, weak. How did you hide all of this? Okonkwo smiled. We did not hide it, Admiral, we performed it. Every war broadcast, every political scandal, every reality show about petty human conflicts, all of it was theater. We wanted the galaxy to underestimate us, we wanted you to believe we were easy prey. 18 years of deception, 18 years of preparation. When we intercepted your scout probe, we learned everything about the Dominion, your conquests, your methods, your weaknesses. We realized that appearing strong would invite attack before we were ready, so we appeared weak instead. Vorex processed this information. The scale of the conspiracy was staggering. Billions of humans, all maintaining the same lie for nearly 2 decades. Your species cooperated, all of you, when faced with extinction. We discovered that cooperation was easier than conflict. Okonkwo leaned forward. Humans are strange creatures, Admiral. We fight among ourselves constantly, over resources, over beliefs, over pride. But when something threatens all of us, we become something else entirely. We become unified, we become focused, we become very, very dangerous. High Priest Gallows sat in the corner, his ceremonial robe stained with soot from the battle. He had not spoken since the surrender. His entire belief system had been built on the principle that the strong conquered the weak, yet humans were biologically weaker than Dravani, softer, slower, smaller. They should have been easy to dominate. Your sacred doctrine, Okonkwo said, turning to address him, the strong exist to conquer. I have read your texts, but you measured strength incorrectly. You counted claws and armor and raw physical power. You never considered other forms of strength. What other forms? Gallows whispered. Cooperation, deception, patience, the willingness to sacrifice personal glory for collective survival. Okonkwo stood. The Dominion conquered 200 worlds because those worlds could not work together against you. Humanity can. That is why you lost. Vorex asked the question that had been burning in his mind since the battle ended. Why did you accept our surrender? You could have destroyed us all. Why show mercy? Okonkwo met his gaze. Because we are not you. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. We built our fleet to defend, not to dominate. And now, Admiral, we are going to offer your entire Dominion a choice, the same choice you never gave anyone else. A communication officer entered the room. Director, the broadcast is ready. All Dravani worlds are receiving. Okonkwo nodded. Transmit. The message went out to 200 worlds, to billions of beings living under Dravani rule. Earth was about to introduce itself to the galaxy, not as prey, as protector. Director Okonkwo's face appeared on screens across 200 worlds. On Dravani Prime, the Supreme Council watched from their obsidian throne room. On mining colonies and agricultural planets, slaves paused in their labor to stare at the unfamiliar human woman. On military outposts and breeding stations, soldiers and civilians alike fell silent as the broadcast began. I am Director Priya Okonkwo of Earth, she said. 58 seconds ago, your invasion fleet attempted to conquer my world. That fleet no longer exists. 3,000 warships were defeated in less than 1 minute. This is not a threat, it is simply a fact. She paused, allowing the information to settle. For 2,000 years, the Dravani Dominion has conquered and enslaved. You have crushed civilizations, you have erased cultures, you have taught the galaxy that the strong exist to dominate the weak. That era ends today. On a dozen slave worlds, beings who had known nothing but chains looked up at the screens. With expressions they had forgotten how to make. Hope, the word had been beaten out of them generations ago. Now it flickered back to life. Earth does not seek conquest, Okonkwo continued. We do not want your territory, your resources, or your servitude. What we offer is simple, protection. Any world that wishes to be free may request Earth's assistance. We will ask nothing in return, no tribute, no loyalty oaths. Only peace. The Supreme Council of Dravani Prime erupted in furious debate. They still had 50,000 warships across their empire. Surely they could crush this single human world if they combined their forces. But the admirals and generals had seen the combat footage. they had watched 3,000 ships die in less than a minute against a human fleet that suffered no casualties. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. If humans could destroy 3,000 ships with 4,000 of their own, what could they do with more, and how many ships did Earth really have? 6 months passed, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had predicted. 17 slave worlds requested Earth's protection within the first week. Human ships appeared in their systems, not to conquer, but to build. They established medical facilities and food distribution centers. They taught farming techniques and water purification. They asked nothing in return. Sub-Commander Rella watched these developments from a detention facility on Earth's moon. The humans had kept their word. Prisoners were treated humanely, given comfortable quarters, allowed to communicate with family. It was nothing like Dravani prison camps. A young human guard brought her meals each day. Her name was Sophia, and she had kind eyes that reminded Rella of her own daughter back home. One evening, Sophia sat down across from her and asked a simple question. What was it like, conquering worlds? Rella thought for a long time before answering. I told myself it was natural, the strong dominate the weak. But watching your people, you are weaker than us in every physical way, yet you won, and you did not become like us afterward. You did not enslave, you did not destroy. Why? Sophia shrugged. Because that is not who we are. We fight when we must, we protect what we love, but we do not take pleasure in cruelty. There is no honor in it. On the former slave world of Tessara Prime, Earth's first permanent embassy opened its doors. Human diplomats walked among beings who towered over them, creatures with claws and armored hides and venomous fangs. The humans were small and soft and fragile. They needed suits to survive extreme temperatures. They required regular sleep and constant nutrition, and yet, everyone in the galaxy had learned to fear them, not because of what they destroyed, because of what they protected. A young Tesseran child approached the human ambassador, her 4 eyes wide with curiosity. Are you really from the Death World? She asked. The ambassador, a middle-aged man with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes, knelt down to her level and smiled. We prefer to call it Earth, and yes, we are here to help. The child reached out and touched his hand. Soft skin, no claws, no scales, nothing dangerous at all, and yet, because of this species, her people were free. The galaxy would never be the same.